Welcome back to another Sens One-on-One. I'm Bruce Garrioch. Pleased to be joined today by Nicole Baldin, our Charge hockey writer, as they go into the Walter Cup final for the second straight year. But this time it's an all-Canadian matchup as they face the Montreal Victoire in the PWHL final. And Natasha, as we speak today, the Victoire and the Charge are getting ready to play game one on Thursday night in Montreal. This is Ottawa's second trip back. What are we expecting in this series?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it'll be a bit of a redemption series for Ottawa. They got to this point last year and came so close and fell to the Minnesota Frost in 4 games, and now they're back, and now they know what it's like to be in this situation, and they just want to secure the win and kind of manage to do what they couldn't do last year. And they've got some interesting additions to their lineup this year they didn't have around this time last year. There was that big trade in January that brought the three players from the Vancouver Golden Knights and Michaela Cava, Brooke McQuaig, and Emma Greco, all of whom spent time on that Minnesota Frost roster and won a Walter Cup championship with the Frost. Michaela Cava won those back-to-back championships, and she's actually won championships in 5 consecutive teams that she's been on, spanning across 4 different leagues, including overseas over in Russia and in Sweden. So she's a proven winner. She knows what it takes to win. So not only is there a bit of a redemption arc here for the players who were on that Charge lineup last year, but now we also have players who can kind of bring that winning experience into that locker room. So I think it'll be a fun series, and I think this will kind of be the right group and the right ingredients here.
Well, and you look at the situation that they're in, Natasha, and a lot of people were concerned about the Charge last year after what they lost in expansion. Do you think do you think they've kind of had to battle the odds to get here?
Absolutely. I mean, they've been the underdogs all season long, including coming into these playoffs. Having to win that last game of the regular season to clinch their spot. They left it down to that very last minute and entered that playoff matchup against Boston as the proven underdogs. And again, they'll be the underdogs in this final series against Montreal, who finished first in the regular season this year. So it will certainly kind of be a gritty underdog matchup, but that's what they're used to this year. And we've had some players that Ottawa's managed to acquire this year after they lost so many goals with expansion, as you mentioned. We've had so many players come into this roster and step up. Fanuza Kadirova, she was drafted in the
Mm.
sixth and final round of last year's draft, and is currently one of the top scorers. She's tied with Poulin right now for the top scoring in the finals with 2 goals and 3 assists. So it's players like that who have just kind of been able to come into this roster and step up. We've seen some great rookie performances as well from players like Sarah Bosnevich, who's playing on that top line right now, and defenders like Rory Gilday on the blue line as well. So this team has managed to round itself out and kind of defeat the odds in that way, even when people may have had their doubts at the beginning of the year.
Natasha, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't recap that overtime victory on Sunday. Um, the it when you never know what's going to happen. The chance to close out the series, and they're able to do it. And the right people stepped up at the right time, didn't they?
Certainly. I mean, that was one of the craziest games I've ever been in the building for. The Charge going up 2-0, and then with the
Yeah.
series being as low scoring as it was, we were kind of like, okay, that's it. Like, the Charge have won it. And then Boston came back with those 3 goals within a minute and 33 seconds in that second period. And suddenly it was an entirely different hockey game. But yeah, you saw players who may have been a little bit quiet in that series, like Rebecca Leslie, like Brianne Jenner, step up in those big moments and kind of seal the deal and get the job done for their team. And then there was Michaela Cava as well in that double overtime win to get that goal. And that was her first goal in the Charge uniform in 20 games since coming over for
Mm.
Vancouver. And again, she's a proven playoff performer and is just kind of stepping up at the right time. And it couldn't have been a bigger moment for her to get that first goal.
One of the things, though, that I found interesting was their coach talked to them uh, about resilience. And this group has shown good resilience through the course of the season, hasn't it?
Definitely, and I think that game 4 is a great example of that as well. Going up 2-0, and then suddenly within a minute and 33 seconds finding themselves down 3-2. I think Brianne Jenner, she said post game, I think she said it best, where a lot of teams in that situation, letting up those 3 goals in such a short time, a lot of teams would have folded. but the Charge didn't. They came back, and before the end of that second period, they managed to tie the game at 3, and not only that, to find the overtime winner. And they've proven time and time again they may not always look like the best team on the ice. They've been outshot in that series in Boston by more than 10 in every single game, but they managed to find the win in 3 of those scenarios. So it just really goes to show that they're a gritty team, they're a resilient team, and no matter what the shot clock may look like, that they're putting in their best effort, and that's proving off for them.
Gwyneth Phillips, the goaltender, was the MVP of last year's playoffs, and when they lost to the Frost in the final. To me, is she I think she's trending in that direction again. You get to see a lot more of her than I do, but just Alain Vigneault, former coach of the New York Rangers and the Vancouver Canucks, told me once that if my goaltender is better than your goaltender, I'm probably going to win. And I think that Gwyneth Phillips gives her team a chance to win every night.
Absolutely, and we saw it in the series against Boston as well. I'd say all 4 games, she was the best player on the ice on both teams. She kept her team in the game with sometimes some phenomenal saves with her paddle or the toe of her skate. Just, it seemed like she was keeping the puck out of the net at all odds. She made 135 saves on 142 shots, which is an average of like 37 saves a game, I think, which is a crazy average, especially in the playoffs. Yeah. That's such a heavy workload for a goaltender, but she's just really stepping up to the occasion, a lot like she did last season in the playoffs when we saw her go on this amazing run as well. And I think whether the Charge are on the winning or losing end of this final, she's definitely in the conversation to be playoff MVP.
What kind of series are you expecting against the Victoire? There's no rest for the weary. I mean, they come off that Game 5 victory on Monday night against an opponent they chose, by the way. And so now, how do you expect this plays out?
I think it'll be another battle of the goaltenders. Like we've talked about Phillips, but on the other end, there's Renee Desbiens, who's also proven she has the opportunity to steal a game in any scenario. She did so against Minnesota in that Game 5 victory, just keeping the puck out of the net at all odds. So I do really think it'll be another really tough goaltending battle, and I think we'll see lots of those one goal, those low scoring games that, with the goaltenders just keeping their teams in and on either end of the ice. These teams also do have the history of going to lots of overtime, so I do expect we'll see some extra time. It was last year in the semifinals between Ottawa and Montreal where we saw that viral mustard packets and pickle juice being consumed on the bench. So I do think we may be in for some long games and just kind of battle of the gritty teams, and whoever can manage to find that game-winning goal when it's all on the line. I think it'll really just come down to that in a lot of situations, and whichever team can outlast the other and find that game-winning goal.
I asked you this in the last series, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you again. Who's the X factor for the Charge? Who is somebody who, maybe in a series like this could step up and be a hero?
I think we're seeing already from Fanuza Kadirova. She's having one heck of a postseason. She came into this league. Nobody really knew what to expect from her. She came in from the Russian league after playing 12 seasons in Russia, and nobody really knew how her game was going to translate. It's not a super physical game over in Russia, especially after they haven't been able to play in IIHF competition over the last few years. We've seen play decrease a little bit in Russia. So her coming over to North America was a bit of a wild card, but the Charge have been rewarded in every scenario. She's gritty. She has a really quick shot, which has rewarded her in the slot several times in this series. She's physical, which I think a lot of people weren't expecting. And she's overcome all of this despite the fact she doesn't have a ton of English in her vocabulary, so a lot of the players aren't really able to communicate with her on the bench. But they say she speaks hockey, which is really all that matters at the end of the day, is that on the ice she's really connecting with her line mates. That line with Katerina Mrazova and Michaela Kava is really proving to be a difference maker in this series, and they're the ones that scored that game winner in Game 4. And I'm excited to see what else Fanuza Kadirova has in her tank. She's a really exciting player to watch, really gritty, really dynamic, and I think she can continue to be a difference maker in this finals.
We saw as we speak today, Natasha, we saw the PWHL expand to Hamilton in Las Vegas. Is an all-Canadian final good for the PWHL, or is it, is it going to help grow the game? I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it's a good thing. It's a little bit, I don't want to say frustrating. It's a little bit disappointing to see the league go in the direction of expanding to more on the American market than on the Canadian market. Once all this
Yeah.
expansion talk is done, we'll likely see more teams out in the States than we have in Canada. As we've seen time and time again in Canada, the fans show up over and over again for these games. I expect we'll see some more attendance records broken in this final series with the teams being so close together, and I bet you we'll see a lot of Ottawa fans traveling to Montreal and vice versa. And I think it's just going to be a show of best on best. So I think an all-Canadian final is great. It's something we've never seen before, and it really just rewards these Canadian fans who have been sticking by their teams for so long that, despite maybe not being able to come away with that gold medal in the Olympics, that Canadian hockey is something pretty special.
Is the league ready for the expansion?
Yeah, there's lots of talk around that. I don't know if 4 teams all at once is the right move. It seems like a lot. It seems like a lot of organizational and moving parts, like the fact they don't even have GMs announced for these teams yet, and that they're going to go ahead with this expansion process within the next few weeks. Like, it's pretty much as soon as playoffs wrap up. Like, there are certainly doubts as to whether all this can come together seamlessly and without any major hiccups. But at the end of the day, if women's hockey has a chance to reach more cities across North America, then it is a good thing at the end of the day. I hope they can pull it off in a way that benefits the women's game and doesn't have it happening too quickly.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You have to make a pick in the final. Well, you don't have to, but what do you anticipate from this final? And I think you can make a pick if you want.
It'll come down to 5 games. I definitely think it'll come down to 5 games. It's just a matter of, which team wants it more at the end of the day. I think if Gwyneth Phillips is on her A game, then the Charge can definitely steal this Walter Cup. If the Charge can find a way to shut down that top line of Poulin Stacey and Abby Rock or Catherine Dubois, whoever they have on that third slot, then I think the Charge have a good chance. It's just a matter of, if they have another 3 wins in the tank, if they have that much gas left after what's been a really grueling playoff battle so far. But I think the Charge can pull off the offset and be the underdogs here. We've seen it before, and I can't see why we won't see it again.
Well, and you know what, Natasha, you've seen it in all sports where they're not going to just be happy to be there this time, right? Like, like when they got to the final last year, it was like, oh my God, this is gravy, right?
Yeah, exactly. They've been there. They know what it's like to be in that situation and lose now. So now they want to kind of rewrite history a little bit this time and get the win.
For Natasha Baldin, I'm Bruce Garrioch of the Ottawa Citizen. Thank you for joining us on Charge 1-on-1.